And hi, I'm David. And lockdown's been really tough, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name's David. I'm the curate at All Saints Church in Wellington, over in Shropshire near Telford. And welcome to our second evening session of Faithful Parenting in Lockdown. Now, I'm not normally this quiet, but I think our 4-year-old is still awake, hence why Kimberly isn't here yet. So I'm keeping it on the down low. So for the first few minutes, I just thought we'd have a catch up, we'd say hi, we'd see who's here. I know at least 10 people are watching. We're into double figures, isn't that exciting? So do feel free to say hi if you'd like to in the comments. You don't have to, it's not obligatory. And of course, please do tell me if you can't hear me or see me or anything like that. It all looks fine from my end. It looks like you should be able to hear me and see me. But it's always useful if people tell me if they can't, because there is a bit of a delay. Going out. We're still getting used to the tech, aren't we? It's still a bit messy. So last week we began by looking at something called PACE. PACE parenting. I wonder if any of you can remember what it stood for. PACE. What do those words stand for? If you can remember, you can type them in while we're catching up with each other. Hi Lydia, great to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. And David, good to have you both. Hope you're doing well this lovely evening. Hi Clarita, good to have you. Hope you're well too. I should also just point out, lots of you have been aware that over the last few days, our youngest daughter has been in hospital. She came out this afternoon with Kimberly. So Kimberly had also been in PRH for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, for 5 nights from Wednesday night. So it was just the lads at home holding the fort. So that's why I might not have been as visible as I sometimes am in terms of having Arthur as well, which has been wonderful fun. And that's probably why he's taking a bit longer to go to bed tonight, because he was very excited that Mummy's home. And he wanted to sleep over with both of us, but we obviously said that wasn't unfortunately going to be able to happen with this. So Kimberly might come down in time. I have a chair ready for her. She might not be. We'll see how that goes. But I hope you're having a good week. I hope last week was interesting. We looked at PACE parenting last week. Oh, we've got more people and I've been ignoring them. Hi, Tom. Yeah, Lydia, brownie points to you. So we looked at PACE parenting last week, which is a type of therapeutic parenting. And just a really brief recap, the whole video is on our YouTube channel, so if you want to go there afterwards and have a look. But it's a kind of new way of parenting, or at least there may be a different way than the traditional style of parenting, which takes into account children that have gone through trauma. And we had a chat last week that actually lots of our children at the moment are going through trauma with COVID-19 and the pandemic. It might not be the trauma that some particularly vulnerable children have gone through or children that are in care have gone through, but there is a fact that there is a sense that children that are living in this pandemic have lost closeness to other people, they've lost their routine, they've lost seeing their friends and lots of their family members, so they're going through a trauma. And so we looked at this idea that we can parent in a way that's playful, so in a way that might try and turn a situation upside down and make it more fun. So my example was that when Arthur might shout at me, I might go, wow, you're really noisy, let's see who can be the noisiest. And we've turned a situation into something playful. We've looked at being accepting, being curious and being empathetic. And again, we looked at them in good detail. We looked at what the Bible said about it, the fact that God parents us in a therapeutic way, doesn't he? He doesn't put us on the naughty step and ignore us for 10 minutes, but he holds us close and he loves us and he gently reminds us of his expectations, but he also does it in a way that loves us very much. Hi Karen, hope you're well. Hi Abby and hi Stacey. Yes, thank you. Emily is out of hospital now. She is asleep, which is good. She wasn't particularly happy when she was taking her medicine, but that's normal. Temperature is down and she's eating, so we're happy. We had a scary few days with her temperature spiking a lot, but she was looked after by our wonderful NHS team, NHS staff, so that's wonderful. Great. Okay, so like I said, my name's David. If you just tuned in, we've got a few more new people. My name's David, one of the team at All Saints Church in Wellington. I'm the father to 2 children, a 5-year-old, that's a lie, 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. Both have kind of complex additional needs, and so this kind of faithful parenting and lockdown series came out of a discussion a few of us were having that, I don't know about you, but it's really tough parenting during lockdown. and it's tough parenting anyway, but parenting in lockdown with all that means, it's tough. And then put church on top of it. And we were saying, on a Sunday morning, I know lots of children do engage in the screen or do the craft activity, but our children weren't. And so it came out of that thinking, okay, can we share what we do as parents with other parents? Some of it might work, some of it might not. And also the fact that you will have stuff that you can share with us. And so that's kind of where this idea came out of, this weekly kind of conversation with you. Please do comment in the comment stream. Let's make this a conversation with things that we can do to help parent our children faithfully, faithful to God, faithful to who He wants them to be, and faithful to who God wants us to be as parents. And one of the things we wanted to do was look at a way of doing that wasn't cheesy, or, so how to do faith in a non-cheesy way. So last week we looked at therapeutic parenting, and we said that that's kind of from a Christian viewpoint, and we looked a bit about what the Bible said about that. If you missed it, it's on our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to that. It's got a special playlist on our All Saints Wellington YouTube channel. And what we're looking at this week is 5 ways that we can parent in a way that will help bring faith into our homes. And it's worth saying before we start that by parent, I don't just mean those of us that are parents. I also mean by parent, I mean anyone that has a relationship with a child that is a caregiving relationship. So you might be a foster carer, or an adopter, or a birth parent, or grandparents, or aunties and uncles, or family friends, or anything like that. You might be people that usually are at church in the kids groups, for example. So you're in a caring role for kids, and that's one of the things that we want to just share some of our ideas. That we're not amazing parents by any stretch of the imagination. We've only been doing it for 4 years. There are lots of people that are better at it than we are, and so we thought, by pooling it together, let's see what ideas we can steal from each other. And so this week we're looking at how we can do faith in a way that's normal. And I've nicked quite all of these ideas. I've shamelessly stolen from a website, Parenting for Faith, which is a really good course that we can do. But I thought, rather than just directing you to the videos, we are going to watch a short video in a minute that's only a minute long. But rather than doing that, I always think it's nice to have a live conversation. So if any of these kind of raise an idea or anything like that, I'll give you the website at the end that you can go and have a look. So what I've done is kind of collated the information that they give. I've kind of summarised it so we can have a chat about it. And then I've thought, okay, what does that look like in practice? What does that look like for me as the dad of a 4 and a 3-year-old? And then it'd be lovely in the comment stream if you could join in with stuff that works for you. So how can we do faith in an everyday way that's normal? And we'll do a bit of this next week as well. So this week is more of kind of an overview of how we parent kind of as the kind of macro scale, if that's a posh word, how can we parent in general in a way that's good for faith. I'm wonky, aren't I? That's annoying. I'm not in the middle. That's because I'm ready for Kimberly to join me. So sorry if that's annoying you. I'm not dead in the centre. So we're going to be thinking of the macro way of how we can parent in a way that is faithful to Jesus and His love for us, and isn't He wonderful, and all the stuff that He does and continues to do. And then next week, I think we're going to look a bit more at what can we do at bedtime? What can we do at dinner time that's just a bit more practical? And that's when I really need your help. So if you could, over this week, drop me some ideas, messages, pictures, the stuff that you do as a parent. And like I said, that means anyone that kind of looks after or caregives a young person, a child. What do you do to put faith, what do we try and do to put faith in the centre? And we can share some ideas. That would be great. Hi Stacey, great to see you. Hi David, thanks for joining us. So let's have a brief introduction to this kind of parenting for faith idea. Now this video that we're going to watch introduces the whole of the Parenting for Faith course, but it's worth just an insight into give us what we're going to be looking at tonight.
Parents are so worried about doing it right and doing it well and doing it perfectly, and actually Parenting for Faith is about being you where you are with your kids in the way that you do it, enabling them to meet with God in every moment of every day. There is no one right way to do Parenting for Faith. Every family is unique. Every child requires different things. What we can do is give you as a parent the skills that you need to see your heart come alive in the life of a child.
His church when we are.
The way God designed children's discipleship to be is a very integrated model. It starts with a God-connected child, a child who's fully alive in Christ, and parents are called to be their primary disciplers. But we know that that is an isolating prospect for just a parent on their own. But he also put parents in a community that surrounds them. They have an extended family, grandparents and aunts and uncles and godparents. They have other Christian parents. They have community around them. And of course, all of that is within a wider church where there's specialists and a church leader who wants to develop a culture and space for parents to flourish. For me, the church isn't the center of children's discipleship, the home is. And we as a church are doing a disservice to parents if we're not spending our days encouraging them and supporting them and cheering them on and being their wingman and saying, "You got this and I believe in you."
God doesn't become a concept. It's not something we just talk about because they see us live it out in our daily lives, what it means to have a relationship with our Heavenly Father. And I think that's the best gift that we can give to our children.
We have a very wide reach. So BRF today works with churches across the denominational spectrum, across the spectrum of church traditions. And so we believe that we've got a really great opportunity to make available to the widest possible audience across the life of the church this vision that God's given to Rachel for how we can equip and enable and inspire and resource parents to raise their children strong in the faith.
The gateway to all of this is through parentingforfaith.org. If you want to access the website, the course, the stories, the articles, or find out more about how your church can resource parents, come to the website, explore, engage, be part of the Parenting for Faith journey for others and yourself.
Great. It's a good website. Do have a look after this session to see some of their ideas that they have. And the key thing for me is when they said that actually we are the primary disciplers of our children. I don't know about you, but that's a bit scary, really. But how I wonder how often I kind of assume that church would do that job. We go to church on a Sunday morning usually. We send them off to the kids groups. Those are our children that will go to kids groups. We send them off to kids groups. They have half an hour, 40 minutes of some good stuff that's going on, some good biblical stuff, some solid people that do that ministry, and they come back, and that's their discipleship for a week. Well, it shouldn't be, should it? It should be, a daily thing that we're doing with our children, and that's a challenge. So I thought, let's have a look at what we can do as this macro idea. What can we do to parent for faith? And again, lots of this is on the website. It's from the website. I'm giving a brief overview. I've kind of read it, digested it, shared some key things with it. There's more information on there. I think I can hear my wife coming down the stairs. That's exciting. So we've already said this, haven't we? Every child's different. And I think that's really important because when it comes to some ideas that work really well for some families, they just really don't work for others. Those of you that know our family, especially our lad, will know what Messy Church is like for him. Now, Messy Church is a wonderful ministry. It's a fantastic way of doing church. But for our 4-year-old, sensory-wise, it's not good. We've got to really think through how we do it for him. The meal afterwards, that bit's okay, we can do that. But craft-wise, he'd rather be out in the mud digging than doing carefully at a table. So some children are like that, aren't they? Every child is different. So what we're doing with the next kind of few, there are 5 kind of things that we're going to be thinking about, 5 ideas. And what is really important, I think, is that it's less, shall we do all 5 of them really well? And more of, okay, so which of these is right for my child at this season? And some of them will probably overlap. There's quite a lot of kind of the edges are fuzzy, but often it's going to be, okay, will this work for my child? Maybe not. There's always that temptation to compare ourselves with that shiny Christian family down the road with, 8,000 children and organic bread that's warm in the basket and they're skipping down the road merrily to church, whereas I'm, still dragging my family into the car at 10 in the morning. Every child is different, every family is different, but here are 5 ideas that we're going to think about. So these are the 5 ideas that we're going to spend a bit of time looking at. Each one we're going to see what it is, and we're going to see what the Bible might say about them as well. We're going to look at creating windows. We're going to look at surfing the waves. That sounds good, doesn't it? Framing, catch and chat, or even chat and catch, careful how you say that one, and unwinding. And I don't mean relaxing on the beach with a sangria, although that would be nice. That is, you know what, that's parenting, right? Let's do that, I wish. Okay, so creating windows, what does it mean? Well, for me, this is a reminder that we learn by watching and we learn by trying. Apparently, the most popular videos on YouTube are those that are tutorial videos. Hands up if you've fixed something with a YouTube video. I've done 2 things. I've done the light of a KA, my Ford KA. I've changed the light from a YouTube tutorial video, and I've scarily fixed our boiler in our old house using a YouTube video and a spanner. That was good. Do chuck in the comments if you've ever used a YouTube video to what was I saying? If you've ever used a YouTube video to do something, to learn something new. But apparently they are the most popular videos on YouTube. Tutorial videos. Don't know how to do something? You go on YouTube. Because you can see someone doing it, you watch them do it, and you try it. Another example with our family is Arthur now knowing how to use the remote control on the television. You know, we've never shown him how to do it, but he's watched the buttons that I press, so that now he can get onto Netflix and Paw Patrol deftly with 3 buttons. So whether you've been a Christian for years, or whether you've just exploring faith, you know, your journey with Jesus is the most powerful tool to help your child grow in the relationship with God. The children that you look after, the children you give care for, the most powerful tool in your arsenal to help them grow in their journey with Jesus is your journey with Jesus. And creating a window, it is just that. It's giving the child the opportunity to see through the window a glimpse into your relationship with God. For example, in our family, music is something that we love doing. We've got a piano in our electric piano here in our dining room, and very often in the evening we'll do something musical. Now, it won't always be Christian songs. Sometimes we'll just have a little play and make lots of noise, and Arthur will have lots of fun making as loud a noise as he can. But music, for me and Kimberly, is a key way that we connect with God. We're raving charismatics, and for us it's just something that helps us get into the presence of God and worship Him. It's not the only way, obviously, we know that, but for us it's a really key, important way. And so by allowing that to be normal, our children learn that actually that is just normal. You know, we're not cheesy about it. We don't say, oh, we're going to sing a song to Jesus now. It's just something that happens naturally. And we have this window open where they can see what it's like to be a worshipper. They might see me dancing around the kitchen, you know, singing in tongues with my hands in the air or whatever. But for them, it's a window into what it's like to, what one way is to worship. Another way might be your Bible. Now, I don't know when you read your Bible, if you do it daily. I don't know when you might do it. It's hard with little ones, isn't it? And for me, what I try and do, I mean, I've been very lax the last week, but what I try and do is get up early before they're awake. And for those of you that know our children, you know how early that is, and spend just 20 minutes with a cup of coffee and my Bible. Great. Now, that's a good thing to do. But if that's all I do, then my children will never see me read the Bible. And what our children see us doing is what they often want to copy and do themselves. So what I would encourage us to do is, you know, when we're maybe just flicking through the paper or on our phones or whatever it is, why not just have a Bible lying around and just think, you know what, I'm going to open this Bible and read it. It doesn't have to be a big kind of thick King James one or NIV like this one. It could just be a kid's Bible just laying around. And we model, actually, it's just normal to sit and read your Bible. You don't have to do it at a certain time. It's just normal to flick open our Bible and to learn more about God. And maybe that will improve our relationship with God at the same time. So that idea of a window into our relationship with God. Children are watching us even when we don't realise it. I wonder if there's a way that we could, and do jot some ideas in the comments, but is there a way that you could invite your child into one of your spiritual times? I haven't really worded that very well. But I wonder what we can do to invite children to be part of just a normal spiritual time. Maybe you're praying for someone. Why not invite a child to pray for it? Our 4-year-old is now so used to kind of praying that if he accidentally or not accidentally gives one of us a whack, he'll then lay on a hand and go, "Be healed in Jesus' name, amen," and then toddle off. Doesn't really cancel out what he's done, but it's quite funny that's something he's learned is normal. And it doesn't have to be a posh, eloquent prayer, but it's just normalising it. So saying to that child, let's open the window. We invite them in to our relationship with God. We let them glimpse what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus. And when church is open, that gives a bigger that's a bigger conversation, isn't it, to what we do in church. How do we invite children in to make church normal? Can we have children involved in communion, for example? Can we have children involved in worship, or whatever it is, involved in every single part of our church? There's a temptation that we bring them in for 10 minutes and then ship them off again. But how can we? And I don't have all the answers. This is just a question for those of us that are in a position where we can do something about it. How do we invite children in to open the window and to see what worship's really like? I don't know if you guys have got any thoughts on that. What is it that would be difficult about that, maybe? Is there anything about that is scary, inviting, kind of opening the window? I guess one thing might be that if our relationship with God isn't as strong as we'd like it to be, our child would see that. But to me, that's better than them not seeing anything, isn't it? So that's something that might be scary. But is there anything else about creating windows, about giving a child an insight into your relationship with God that might scare you? Or that might be a good idea? Have you ever done it where you've invited your child to join in a prayer or something like that? While you're having a think, I want to read to you something that tells us why this is important. Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 to 9 says this. If I can find chapter 6, 4 to 9, that'll be good. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your heart. Impress them upon your children. How? By talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframe of your houses and on your gates. I wonder what it would look like in our lives if either physically or kind of more symbolically they were written on the doorframes of our houses, that as our children came in and went out and went about their lives, they would just see the commandments of God, to love your neighbour, to love God with all our heart, soul, mind and strength. What would that look like in our lives? If you've got any ideas, please do jot them in the comments. But that's the first one, creating windows. Letting a child see what our relationship with God is like, verbalising our prayers. That's the one thing I forgot to say, that we make it easy to do that. We make sure the window's always open. So sometimes we might be praying in our heads and our child might not know we're praying. So why not, even if we feel a bit silly, verbalise them, say those prayers. Even if someone pops into your head and you go, oh, let's pray for so-and-so. We'll say that out loud. Maybe an ambulance goes past and you might say a prayer in your heart. But if you've got your child with you, why not just say a simple prayer out loud? And it makes it normal. So it gives your child a kind of window to see through into your relationship with God. If you've got any questions, do jot them on the screen. Parenting for Faith, the course, spends a week looking at these in more detail. So we're doing them fairly quickly. And the next one we're looking at is framing. Framing. So we can give our child a framework for life. We can try and explain why things happen, the big things and their little things. So for example, if a child is sad because they feel alone, we might want to frame that in a Bible story. So we might think of Genesis 37, which is when Joseph was being picked on by his brothers and thrown into a well. We might want to say, yeah, you know what, Joseph would have felt alone. How do you think Joseph would have felt? What did God do for Joseph? So we're framing their feelings. We're not discounting them, but we're framing them. So if we frame it, it means that we explore what God is doing. We look at why things might happen. We look at who God is. We look at how we can explore the Bible well. And this can be difficult with the big pictures. When we're going through the pandemic, Arthur will often ask questions about the germs and the virus and God, and can't we pray the virus away, and things like that. And these are ways of framing a child's viewpoint with God at the centre. So it's capitalising on those questions. It's thinking, how can we explore the Bible well? Not as much to say about that one as the last one, but I wonder how we feel about that. How do we feel about giving them a framework of helping them to see the world how God sees it? An example might be if we're praying for a little finger, we might say, oh, I'm really sorry that your finger's sore. Let's ask God to make it better. He's got the power to do it. So we're putting it in what we might call the wider narrative, the bigger picture. We're giving our children a bigger picture with God at the centre. And we're just doing it in an everyday way. When those opportunities pop up, we're able to do it. I mean, I guess to know that we've got to, we can't think of a Bible story for everything, can we? And there's a balance, I guess, of shoehorning God into everything. That might become a bit cheesy, but I guess the more we do it, the more normal it might become. And I didn't really think of a Bible reading for that one, because I just think that's not a one-off thing, is it? It's kind of clear to me as disciplers of our children that that's what being a disciple is. It's giving the people a framework. It's showing them the bigger pictures and why the little things are important too, and how that fits in with the whole story of the Bible and God's love for us and all He's done for us. So that's framing, putting God in the picture and putting us in God's picture. Unwinding. Now, it doesn't mean relaxing on a beach with a sangria, even though I wish it did. This is all about the way that children can often have a sense of God, a perspective of God that's a bit warped. So, for example, if all you read about God was the Old Testament, you might, some certain stories in the Old Testament, you might have a certain view on God. If all you read in the Bible was the book of Revelation, at the end you might have a certain view of God. But when we read the whole of the Bible together, and when we walk with Jesus and get to know Him, we realise that actually there's this bigger sense of who God is. So a child might be struggling when they're being bullied. They might think, but if God loves me, why would He let that happen? That's a legitimate question, isn't it? Or if they have seen, drawings of God with a big beard up on a cloud, your child might think that's what God's like. God is like an old man with a big beard looking down at a cloud, not really intervening, but looking a bit like an old man. And part of unwinding means that you come back on that. You say, okay, so where have you got that perspective from? And what can we do about it? So it's not saying you're wrong, but it's saying there are other perspectives too. So it's the process of kind of spotting when those misconceptions are there by things that your child might say in a passing comment about God. And the first thing we want to do is understand why they've got that view. Why they've got that view. So why do they think God is a man on a cloud? Maybe they've seen something, a cartoon or whatever that's like that. Okay, so we can deal with that. We can talk a bit about that. And then we say, let's unwind it. And apparently, people who are cleverer than me that have done research have said there's 5 different misconceptions that children can have. One is this cloud God. He's distant, he's busy, he's preoccupied, he's hard to talk to. The other one is the jolly optimistic God, always happy, but happiest when we get things right. Another one is the angry God. It's easily offended. You're like an angry bear with a stick, don't poke him. The other one is a kind of mysterious, eccentric God. Better let him just get on with it. And the final one is the kind of buddy, Jesus is my boyfriend kind of way that can just be a bit smarmy and can get a bit boring. So apparently they're the 5 main preconceptions. The distant God, the jolly God, the mysterious God, the angry God and the buddy God. Now all those things, those of us that have been walking with Jesus a long time will recognise actually God can get angry. There are times when God does seem distant. There are times when He is jolly and full of joy. And Jesus is our friend. But actually if we concentrate on just one of them, that can be dangerous. It's when we bring them all together. So what can we do? We can talk to our child about it. We might want to say, draw a picture. Why don't we draw a picture of God? Reminds me of a good joke, but I'll come to it later at the end. We might say, draw a picture of God. And that will give us an amazing insight into who they might think God is. We might want to say, what's your favourite Bible story? Because if they're over a certain age, that might have affected who they think God is. And then the challenge for us as parents is, how do we broaden our child's view of God? We might want to show them Bible stories of a different kind of God. I always get a bit annoyed that children's Bibles very often stop at the Ascension. You get a huge chunk of the Old Testament, although they miss out lots of the gory bits, don't they? You get a huge chunk of the Old Testament, you get all the life of Jesus, and then you stop. Usually, not always, you stop at the Ascension. You might have a bit of St. Paul, but probably not. So the whole of the New Testament, if we focus our discipleship on using the children's Bible, there's nothing wrong with children's Bibles, they're amazing. But if that's our only thing we focus on, are we in danger of giving our child a certain view? Because lots of children's Bibles miss out lots of the New Testament. I don't know. So that's that one, unwinding. And whoops, what I said. And yeah, there's a few Bible verses that kind of made me think that that's important. But Isaiah 40 verse 20, let's have a look at what that one says. Isaiah 40 verse 20 says this. Oh, well, that doesn't make sense. I have no idea why I put Isaiah 40 verse 20. Sorry, that's wrong, because that's a very random... Oh no, it's not. I think it should have been 18. Whom then will you can compare God to? What image will you compare him to? And then it continues, do you not know, have you not heard, has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the world was founded? He sits enthroned, he stretches out the heavens, he brings princes to nothing. To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal? Says the Holy One. That's verse 25, sorry, not 20. Who is my equal? There's this sense that the picture of who God is too big for us to comprehend. But we've still got to do everything we can to show our children the different sides of God's character that they might not have thought about or recognised. Oh, 28, yeah, thanks. Does it say 28 on there, David? It probably does, actually, does it? So verse 28 is this. Do you not know, have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends. He will not grow tired. His understanding no one can fathom. So no one can fathom how amazing God is. No one can fathom his works, but we can still do everything we can to try and give our child a view of God that is broad, that isn't fixed on one particular kind of, Jesus meek and mild, Christmas card, nice, stable, comfy hay, and isn't kind of Old Testament, David and Goliath, pick up a stone and it's okay to hit people with it because God told me to. Our son has used that, has to be said, has used that argument when he picked up a stone and said, you can't throw stones. He was like, yeah, but God told David to do it. Yeah, unpack that one. Anyway, so there's a prime example of a time when actually we have to say, yeah, he did, but let's look at the wider picture of who God is. Where are we up to? We've done unwinding, we're up to chat and catch. So, we're going to be looking at prayer another week, but this is all about prayer. Chat and catch, all about prayer. How can we make prayer normal for our children? Well, this is how. Chatting, we encourage children to just use informal language when they talk to God, and non-verbal forms to communicate with God. If we go to a church that maybe has more liturgy, then very often our prayers are quite formal. The reading age of all of our liturgy is above the national reading age. So the liturgy we use can be a barrier, especially to children who might not understand it as well. So we have to say to them, yeah, that's valid. Liturgical prayers are valid, of course they are, but it's also valid to speak to God as if you're talking to me or as if you're talking to your friend. So that's what the chatting is. We encourage children just use informal language. Think of Jesus praying, our Father, Abba, our Father in heaven. Catching is just training them to recognise God's voice. That's a bit harder. Recognise and respond to God's voice, however he might choose to speak. Now this is a challenge because lots of Christians are unaware that God can speak to them. Hands up if you find it easy to hear God's voice. Yeah, exactly. Some of you might put your hand up. I can't see you. That is a fair comment. But I don't find it particularly easy. but we still have a real passion, don't we, to teach our children to hear God's voice. He's their loving Father. He loves to speak to them. Jesus says in John that my sheep hear my voice. And so the more we spend time with the shepherd, the more we learn to hear his voice. If you're interested in knowing more about that, if you're interested in knowing more about the prophetic, I've done a couple of teaching sessions on it. They're on our YouTube channel. They're called Hearing God's Voice. There's 2 of them, an hour long each. Go and check them out if you're interested, that every Christian can hear God's voice and move in the prophetic ministry. That's what I think. But anyway, we're going off topic. So catching is when we teach our child or our children to catch that bit, to hear God's voice to them, however he might speak to them. Teach them that actually prayer is an ongoing conversation. And I struggle with this. One thing I've started to do with our 4-year-old is say to him, do you want to ask God this question and see what he says? And he doesn't really engage much. He's the kind of child that has to want to do it himself. If you ask him to do it, you've got to be careful how you ask him to do it. He'd rather be digging in the dirt than sitting and listening to God speak to him. But we're still trying to do that. But I wonder if we could do that by encouraging our child. Maybe one to say to them, why don't you ask God this question and see what he might say? Why don't you listen to God with me? And again, we can do that by letting our child hear us pray. We come back to that. I don't know how easy you find it to pray out loud, but even if you find it really hard, I'd encourage you to do it in front of your child, because it teaches them that prayer is normal, that prayer doesn't have to be long, and for Luty it can just be a normal chat. We might teach them how we hear God's voice, something coming into our head, a picture or a person's name, or we might see a vision or have a dream that might be from God. And again, we might ask God a question and see if we can work out the answer. So chat and catch is all about encouraging our child to hear God's voice and to talk to him. And I won't read the whole thing now because time is getting away from us very quickly, but 1 Samuel 3, is that right, David? 1 Samuel 3, 1-10, the story of Eli the priest and Samuel, and how Samuel wakes up hearing someone call him, and he goes through to the priest, and the priest goes, no, it wasn't me, go back to bed. And eventually the priest goes, it wasn't me, it's God. Next time God speaks, do this. So an example of someone who is parenting a child, Eli at that point parenting Samuel and teaching him how to hear God's voice. So we can do that. That's something that we can do as children, as parents. Surfing the waves, Surfing USA, happy days. So what we find as we disciple our children is that interesting things often come and go, especially probably children that are particularly older. We've got a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and our 4-year-old is always interested in the same thing, construction vehicles. But when our children are older, often they go through these waves of being, 1 minute they love reading the Bible, next minute it's all about YouTube worship videos, next minute it's all about, disgust at kind of modern slavery, whatever it is, they kind of go around and there are different waves that they're riding, especially like I said when they're a bit older. So I wonder if we can learn to spot a wave. What is it that our child is particularly interested in at that time? What are they being curious about? What's making them angry? Are there any stories that come up a lot? And when those things do come up a lot, we capitalise on them. We think, right, this is an opportunity. It's all about surfing the waves. When you go surfing, you wait for the right wave and then you take it. I used to surf. Back in the day when I was a teacher in Norfolk, I used to go surfing after school on a Friday. My surfboard would be in my car. I used to think I was so cool. I'm sure the kids I taught didn't. But surfing the wave always means capitalising on what we see. Great, we've got an opportunity to surf, let's go for it. And it's similar here. It's exactly the same here. When something comes up, we take it to the advantage of it. So when something happens that's spontaneous, or my kids start asking a question, we think, right, this is an idea. This is the time for me to talk to my child about Jesus, about God. And one example and please do come up with examples in the comment stream. One example that I can think of is with the pandemic going on, there's often, with our 4-year-old, he's often talking about germs. And it's led us to have quite the conversations about God, about faith, and about, he wanted to say a prayer. He said, Daddy, if we pray that all the germs die, then all the people will be better. And wow, what a huge thing for a 4-year-old to say. And that raises lots of questions in how we talk about suffering and all that stuff, and how we do it in a way that a 4-year-old can understand. But I thought, I'm going to use this, and we had a little conversation about it. Another example that's maybe not as holy is when we came out one morning into our garden to find a pigeon that was no longer alive on the grass. And we got rid of the pigeon, and Arthur wanted to, all of a sudden all these questions were asked about life and death and things like that. And so without being morbid, I wasn't just going to say he's asleep, we had a little talk about it. Obviously in a way that's appropriate for a 4-year-old. So it's surfing the way that's capitalising on these opportunities that we have. It's using their interests when they come up to talk about faith. So yeah, it's spotting what God is up to in your child's life, because each child is unique and each child has different things that they're interested in, and some will do different things than others. Let's see what I said here for Ephesians 5, shall we? Have a look at Ephesians 5, see what the Bible says about each of these. Surfing the waves. I'm pretty sure St. Paul wasn't surfing in Ephesus, but let's see. Ephesians 5:15 says this: "Be careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity." So there's a sense there, I think, St. Paul tells us, let's take every opportunity. And he goes on to say, don't be foolish, understand what the Lord's will is. Always give thanks to God. So there's a way of living. It's a great verse in Ephesians 5. Go and have a little read of it if you fancy after this. But taking every opportunity, not to jump on our child and lump them overhead with the Bible, but to say, okay, what can we learn from this with Jesus? Because like I said, it shouldn't be a one-off thing. It shouldn't be a, oh, we haven't talked about Jesus for a few days. I better do something. What shall I do? It's just doing it in a way that makes the everyday normal. Being a Christian shouldn't be that weird. I mean, some of us are a bit strange, aren't we? We know that. I mean, look at me. But actually, it should just be a normal thing that every day we're with Jesus and we're talking with him and we're listening to him. And we know, don't we, that if all our Christian walk is going to church on a Sunday and ticking that box, then that's not what life in all its fullness is with Jesus. We're missing out on the bigger picture, aren't we? Of knowing Jesus every day, of spending our lives with him, just sharing time with him. And very often I think God just wants to do that. God just wants to share time with us. Pete Greig did the prayer course, and it's a great course. And Pete Greig tells a story. And I think it's relevant, so I'm going to share it with you. It's a brief one. He's walking along a path, and Pete Greig feels God say to him, I want you to go and look at that tree. So Pete Greig thinks, well, that's a weird thing for God to want me to do, but okay, I'll go and do it. So he goes off and he looks at this tree, and he's staring at this tree, and he's going, okay then, God, nothing's happening. Okay, I'm looking at the tree. Anything you want to teach me from the tree? And God just said back, it's a nice tree, isn't it? and sometimes we think, things have to be big and profound, but sometimes, all the time, God just wants to be with us, and he wants us to be with him. Think back to the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve would just walk with the Lord in the cool of the evening. They'd walk with him and talk with him. And so that's what God longs for with us. And he longs for us to disciple our children in that way, I think, too. And this is how we do it. So we've looked at those 5 things. We've looked at creating windows, showing a child kind of an insight into our walk with Jesus. Unwinding, looking at their preconceptions of who God is and trying to open them up to another way of doing it. Framing, showing our child the bigger picture, the God's picture, seeing life as God sees it. Chat and catch, teaching our child that it's okay just to chat to God. That's how we pray. We just have a conversation with Jesus. We just talk to him like I'm talking to you now. We just chat, and we stop and we listen to what he has to say to us. And finally, we surf the waves. We capitalise on these opportunities. As St. Paul says in Ephesians, we make the most of every opportunity. Ephesians 5:16. We make the most of every opportunity. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's given you a few ideas. Do write in the comments, what's one thing that you might try and do now that has maybe will impact your parenting? I think for me, I'm still thinking through the catch bit. How can I teach my child to hear from God? So I'm going to be working at that. So next week I'll let you know how that goes. Next week I'm going to be thinking hopefully will have had opportunities to teach my 4-year-old how to hear God speak in a way that isn't weird or spooky or kind of, but we just take the opportunities as they come to do that. So yeah, if you've got anything you want to add, one thing that you think you might take with you. So Karen says, good opportunities to talk about chatting to God when kids ask about why God hasn't given them what they've asked for. That's a good one. So we ask for sunshine when they want to go in the paddling pool, but God doesn't give it. That's a good question. And of course, we know the answers, don't we? We know the idea that, weather doesn't just affect us, but if everyone had sunshine all the time, the ecosystem would collapse, blah, blah, blah. But for a child, they find that really hard, that, my loving Father, wants to answer my prayers. I'm told to pray, and I pray for this, and it doesn't happen. I'm always humbled by Arthur's faith when one of us is hurt and he comes up and he goes, be healed in Jesus' name. You're better now, come on. And we go, oh, that still hurts. Not always, actually. There are times, miraculously, there's been a couple of times when Kimmy's had a raging headache and Arthur has laid his hands on and she's been healed instantly. It's been miraculous. But again, it doesn't happen all the time, does it? We live in the now and the not yet of all the kingdom. And we, as maybe more mature Christians and our children, have some answers to that. They're not always good answers, but we have answers, and our children don't. So yeah, that's a good one, Karen. Thanks. Any more thoughts on what we do? Thanks, Sydney. Good to have you with us. So Lydia says, do more praying out loud so it's normal and visible. Yeah, that's good, I think. Well, if you've got any more thoughts, please do chuck them in the comments. I'll be here for a bit longer, just finishing my cup of tea. Next week, what we're going to be looking at, I think, is kind of more practical, day-by-day things. What can we do? Kind of at the dinner table. What can we do? Kind of bedtime, bath time in the morning. That just makes faith a normal thing. That it's not. We don't strive for it. We don't contrive and make it something that it's not. We just do something normal. And so, as I said at the beginning, if you've got any ideas of stuff that you do to kind of bring Jesus into your house as a parent, let us know. I'm sure you've got some amazing ideas of stuff that you do. So the more the merrier with ideas. Thanks, Karen. Great to have you with us. If any of you missed our week last week on Pace Parenting, on therapeutic parenting, please do get in there on our YouTube channel and check it out. That'll be great. We'll be back on Wednesday morning. If you've got toddler-aged children, on Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to move it to 10 o'clock. We're going to be doing our toddler time on our main Facebook page, some singing, some songs, and a story. Maybe a story. Not always a story. Depends how I'm feeling. Sometimes a story. So do join us for that if you'd like to on Wednesday at 10:30. So Sydney has said, definitely thinking more about framing and how we can bring the Bible and God's story to the kids that relate to their day today. Sorry, that relate to their day to day. Good challenge. Yeah. That's a good point, Stacey. Reading my actual Bible rather than the online version so they can see. Yes, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really good point. And yeah, I guess I kind of hide myself away when I read my Bible. Like I said, I do it before they wake up, and I'll do it during the day in my study. But what's really funny is that sometimes Arthur comes to help me work in my study. Bless him, so he wants to come and help. But because I have two screens in my study, I have my kind of laptop screen and a second screen, which is the same computer screen. And one's for typing, and the other one's for email, website research, all that stuff. So I can type and look at blah, blah, blah. But I also have YouTube up. And I've often got a worship video playing, or Hillsong or Bethel music playing. And Arthur thinks that Daddy working means he's watching videos. So when Arthur wants to help me work, what that means is he wants to sit next to me while watching usually Fireman Sam or Fireman Sam toys. I don't know why children watch toys, but watching toys on YouTube. So I don't know what that's about. But a prime example of Arthur seeing something and copying, and that's what our children do, isn't it? They copy what we do without us teaching them how to do it. So Hey, maybe if I actually didn't use my computer and just spent all day reading my Bible, that's what Arthur would want to do. There's a challenge. Who knows? I don't think he would, but it's worth thinking about, isn't it? Right, I'm going to be logging off soon. I really hope tonight's been helpful. It seems it has, so that's great. As I said, we don't have all the answers at all, so we'd love this to continue to be a conversation. So if you've got anything that you're doing at home that works with your kids, or anything you've got real big questions over, anything you're stuck on, you can message it to me, either through you can find me on Facebook, or email me at david@allsaints-wellington.org, or comment it on the stream, and then we'll just have a go at talking about it. That would be great. But anyway, we're going to disappear now. Sorry that Kimberly hasn't been here again. She is here, honestly. I am married. She does exist, my wife. I think she's probably still in bed. She might even be listening to this on headphones, who knows? Or maybe just watching me on a screen with the sound off. But anyway, been so good to be with you tonight. Glad it's been helpful. I'll see you later. Bye.